So thinking in terms of the pipeline and thinking in terms of completion, reaching that goal, reaching that momentum point and completing that momentum point and looking at it as a whole process really changed the way I thought about what we were doing, and what our goals were, right? Because if our goals in the program, in the developmental English program, are to prepare students ultimately for college writing, we were failing miserably. And when you look at individual course success rates, you think, well, okay, it's a little low, but I could get a little better, and you're just really holding yourself only to this kind of standard of individual course success rate. And then when you realize the way, no matter what you're doing even, once the students get in that pipeline and start facing all those exit points, that all the work you put in helping your individual course be better is lost in a way. So it really reframed kind of what the problem was and what needs to be done about it in a pretty stark way for me, and made me realize that it's really a collective programmatic effort and something we really as a department have to collaborate to do and change. And even providing interventions where you're supporting individual faculty and individual classes is just not going to have the same kind of leverage the way a more structural reform is going to. That's where the network idea comes in, right? Because I had the support of 3CSN, the California Acceleration Project, which is funded and so helped, partially supported by 3CSN. So having that external support gave me resources, gave me data that I could bring to my own faculty, right? And then the fact that there was this staff development opportunity mobilized several of our faculty to want to join in that and take advantage of that further support. But even when I just brought this data to the department, I don't know if you remember the conversation that we had. There was nobody except, I think even at that point, our crabby person who resists everything, wasn't even resistant. Everybody was just like, yeah, sounds great. And out of a faculty of 35, I had 12 people volunteer right there on the spot to be part of the committee. 12! That's huge, right? A third of the department says, I'm on board. Not only I support this idea, but I want to be part of it. The data helped tell the story, for sure, because it sort of put this in this stark way that people can't argue with. It's like once you see it that way, what are you going to say? Well, I think we're doing fine, really? 17% of English 39 students get to 100? That's not so fine. So I think it puts it right out there in front of people. And I think because we have a faculty that isn't prone to being satisfied with that wants to be successful, that wants to see their students do well, and that is willing to make change to make that happen, they were fertile ground for sort of responding to that story and to responding to that data. But then I think, again, the support of the network allowed us to be able to, motivate to make the change happen so that we could participate. So that process of really having the committee be inquiring into models of acceleration and talking about how it might work for our campus and what we might want to do, it really was a very much faculty-driven process. And that the network, the California Acceleration Project, is faculty-driven, created by a math faculty and an English faculty, and then reaching out to faculty teams of collaborators to find out what they're doing. And so a lot of what their sense of best practices, that they present to us, where that comes from, is their work with faculty around the state to find out what people are doing. So it really builds from kind of the ground up and the department level up. We all have a shared vision of what the problem is, but then the network sort of supports the individual campus development of, let's look at your data, let's look at what's happening on your campus, what's the best model for trying out this change at your locale, and then bringing your shared experience back into the network to share with other campuses who may be interested, intrigued, a little wary, skeptical. So for example, I gave a presentation at Pasadena City College to a group of faculty who, the people who invited me were enthusiastic about this idea, but they had quite a few faculty in their department who were skeptical and not willing to jump in the way our faculty were. So they invited me to come and talk, and I framed my presentation to them in terms of, what are your concerns? Here are the concerns that we had as we started researching this model and researching this approach. And then here's the results that we got, and here's the way in which our data and our experience, so not just the data, but also our sort of day-to-day experience of teaching the class, seeing what works, what didn't work, comparing results with each other in our team, caused us to feel confident about this method and of this model in certain ways, so that I could say, all right, so we had that concern too. For example, what about disabled students? How are they going to manage in a one semester model? Like that we're worried that that's not going to work. But it has, it has worked for some of those students. So taking that approach and sort of bringing what we've learned from our own experience and looking at our success rates has kind of helped bring it to other campuses where they might be a little more skeptical, and so they can hear about what we did, the problems we faced, what our successes were, and then get them thinking, oh, okay, so maybe that would work for us. So the idea of reframing is, sort of started with that basis of like, well, okay, here's the problem. The data helped us realize what the problem was, and then reframe our way of dealing with the problem in a more structural, kind of systematic way instead of kind of individual course interventions. And bringing that as a problem to the department and saying, here's who wants to explore